Hi, Maria. Thanks so much for joining me, friend.
Absolute pleasure to be here.
I have so enjoyed following you for feels like forever, but there must have been a time where I started following you. And in case I've loved your wisdom and your sharpness and your directness. And I feel like a lot of your tweets have this very like transmission quality where you're just saying what the world needs to hear and what I need to hear. And they're often very timely and synchronistic. And yeah, I haven't had a call with you before, so it's a delight to kind of meet the woman behind the tweets and hear about your life and how you see things. So I really appreciate you taking the time. Um,
Mm, you've introduced that perfectly, and the sharp divine insights is my trademark. So
there we
you
go.
nailed that perfectly, and yeah, it's a pleasure to share more of that and
Mm,
more long form. So thank you for giving me the space.
mm. So I'll start by asking you the question that I ask everyone, which is about your life story. Because for me, even though there's often a particular thing I'd like to talk to someone about or set of themes, I really find it so valuable to have that framed in the personhood of who someone is and the experiences that they've had in their life and what they've been through. And I think everyone is kind of like the hero of their own journey. And so I love to devote time to just being like, who are you and what has your journey been and what is your story? And hear from people about that. So I'd love to hear from you about your story and your life, whatever you'd like to share, short, long. It can be in any form you like. I'd love to hear it.
Okay, amazing. Hmm, where to start? So I'm going to share what I think is relevant. I guess I've always been a devotee to the divine, to the feminine, even if I couldn't see that when I was young. But I think it started with sports and art. So I was like every sports team, every art class, just so like into like that expression or being able to move my body in a certain way or express energy in a certain way. And then I think my first greatest love arrived in skateboarding when I was 11. And that was, they built a skate park in my hometown. And then everyone at school started skateboarding. And then slowly everyone started to peel off. But there was a core crew of us that were so obsessed and devoted to our craft and our community. And we'd skate like every day after school till dark. Even at Christmas, if it was snowing, we'd be shoveling, and it was just like complete like devotion. And now I can see why I loved it so much. It was like expression through the body in quite a poetic art form. And then it held like community and it needed discipline and devotion. And it was like a mixture of flow and I guess there's like flow and form. So it was very feminine, even though it's quite hardcore and you're like falling on concrete, which now again is like it's very like dark feminine. It all makes sense. So that was my kind of my path to everything was skateboarding. I skated from the age of 11 till like university, so early 20s, and I competed all through my teens. So traveled the world with it and kind of found a tribe and found belonging and found this thing that I just loved and took over my life. And then I think the other key bit of information to share is my ancestral background. So my family on both sides are from a village in Italy, small old village in the hills in Calabria. Super old school way of life, super traditional. And I would spend my summer holidays there. And I think I experienced love again in a way I didn't know what it was until later, but the love of a village and just what that was like staying at my grandma's with all my cousins and having this like village atmosphere of like old people coming in and sharing food and just like such a strong essence of love. So that was my second love and devotion. And then I created a brand, a skate brand, where I just shared all of my loves. So skateboarding inspired by the village and style and fashion, which I studied at university. And I guess my whole life was kind of just inviting people into these loves, sharing the loves, and creating an ecosystem of others that could feel the same frequency. And then this brand went on to do really well. And again, I didn't realize why at the time, but I think now it's because I was channeling the divine feminine and we were releasing videos or t-shirts or all sorts of things. It was like an ecosystem of creativity. And I would co-create with anyone that I could feel that divine feminine essence with, whether men, women, artists, all sorts of people. And then suddenly all the big brands, the Nike, the Adidas were like, oh, what's this like little brand out of London that's like really feels interesting and everyone wants to be a part of it. And I think again, they could feel the divine feminine essence. So then we collaborated with lots of brands, um, which was super amazing because we were a really small ecosystem of creators, but we managed to like hit the global scale. And then I guess the next chapter of the story is that everything was always intuitively led. And 3 years ago, 4 years ago, just after COVID, um, my intuition just completely stopped. And I was like, this is weird. This has never happened. Like I've always been guided or shown the next creative step. And then like I got really sick. I had the vaccine and it made me really, really sick. And then just I went through this journey of like spiritual awakening, but descent. None of the tools were working anymore. Breathwork wasn't working, yoga wasn't working. I just like felt like I'd lost my soul. And then I couldn't type anymore. It got to a point where the universe was just like, nah, you need to just stop everything. And I was like, okay, stop the company, stop the brand. Well, none of the doctors knew what was going on. Nobody was, everyone was like, I don't know what to do. And then I spoke to a teacher. I found a teacher online. She is a dark goddess doula. And she's also from southern Italy, but lives in LA. And she was like, I've got you. I know what's going on. You're having an initiation into the dark goddess. Trust me. And I like my soul just lit up when I spoke to her. I was like, oh my God, I feel something again. And she was like, I'll come and meet you in the village in Italy. So it's funny that the village was the inspiration all through my life, but it was also the place that I went to heal. Nowhere else could heal me. And the sacred in the village, whether it was an apple from a tree or the community or like eating with the nonnas, slowly, slowly, I just healed. And it took 3 years. And obviously, I did a lot of work with my teacher, and we did lots of land work and mysticism and really went into the guidance of the dark feminine. And I guess, yeah, I'm out the other side now and I'm kind of being asked to rebuild this ecosystem of co-creation and this feminine frequency, but outside of the constructs of brand and the old world, fully kind of feminine first. So there's my like top line journey to where I am now. But I basically was doing devoted to the goddess throughout the whole time. And I only knew how to put that in a brand because that was all I'd ever seen. So now it's just doing the same work, but outside of the constructs of, I guess, the old structures that we all know. Top line.
Love that. What an incredible story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you
Um,
for listening. It's like hard to try and get it all in a short amount of time, but I think that's all the key top
mm.
line.
So you spent most of the year in the UK and then would go to Italy for the summers.
Yeah, so I
Mm.
grew up and was born in the UK, and then
Mhm.
I'd be summers in Italy
How
throughout.
did your parents come to the UK?
They came in the 70s for work, better work opportunities.
Hmm.
So just after they got married, they came to the countryside. Yeah.
What are your parents like?
That's funny because I'm here at their house now for Christmas. Very good question. It's taken me a long time to realize this as well, but they are just very much like me. My mum is a devout Catholic. So, praise to Mary with the rosemary beads every day is very, very, very connected to the divine, but obviously in the church context, because that's all she knows. but I can see how we carry that same devotion to the feminine through and through. Hers is through, Mary and Jesus, and in many ways mine is, but pre-church. So it's interesting. We're kind of in the same place, but in a different context. And she's a very feminine force in terms of like she was a housewife, but a very good one. Amazing food all the time, very devoted to the house, kind of very traditional. And then my dad is like a very traditional kind of father figure in the sense that he's a provider, and he's all about stability and structure. And I'm only finding that part of me now. I've always kind of rejected stability and structure because I wanted to be free and flowing and free spirit. So I'm only just now realizing like, okay, yeah, that my inner masculine is actually like my dad, what I'm growing into as well. So I'd say they're very like they're quite classic in that masculine, feminine, traditional way.
Mm,
Um, and yeah, I think, like I said, I think we're very similar, but we're living in different contexts.
mm.
Yeah.
What were you like as a kid?
God, these are great questions. I was a little sports nerd. I just wanted to play sports. I think I was very sensitive, obviously, because I'm a very sensitive person, and I probably didn't know how to handle that as a kid. So I just went into sports as like channel. Um, and quite quiet, but very competitive. Uh, yeah, I was just always a bit of a nerd, nerding out in my own little space, whether it was learning how to like do 100 kick-ups outside or painting a masterpiece in my bedroom.
Were there any lessons that your parents imparted to you or things that they tried to teach you that really stuck with you?
Mm, so many. These are such great questions. Yes. My mum's love in terms of like the love of food, the love of family, the love of creation, the love of beauty, the love of luxury. I think that that is something that's very much a part of me for sure. I'm still learning from them. I'm still learning so much. And my dad is, I'm just learning now that visions can only be built with very strong structures to hold them. And stability is important. And reality is also important, even though I mostly live in another realm. A lot of my chart is in the 12th house, so I'm very much in a different realm all the time. But I'm learning reality, I think, through my dad. Practicality.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Do you remember how you first fell in love with skateboarding?
Mm. Gosh, that's such a good question. Mm. I actually don't remember the first moment, but let
Hmm.
me go into this. I have a sense that it was about expressing my body poetically in a way that I hadn't potentially felt in other sports. And there was a freedom to it.
Hmm.
The freedom is a huge aspect. Yeah. Freedom has been my number one driver my whole life. Liberation.
Do you have any stories from your time skateboarding that you might like to share?
Hmm. Yes, many. There was a time when we lived in Barcelona for 3 months with some friends, and it was when Barcelona was the capital of the world for skateboarding. It was the hub. So you would go and you'd meet Swedish people, Australians, like everyone. But we were all tied by this one love of skateboarding. And it was the best time at that time because the whole city is like flat and skatable. So it's like one giant skate park. So we'd just get up in the morning, skate to the beach, have a swim, skate to the spot, skate to the restaurant, eat. So it was like everything was like one giant skate park. And then you were just surrounded by everyone doing the same. And there wasn't many women skateboarders growing up. It was more men. It's different now that it's in the Olympics. But there was a gang of women in Barcelona. So that was like amazing to just be like living in this like skate paradise, but with loads of other women. In a place where it was like the center of our lives, not a secondary thing. That's one great memory. And there's many more. There's many
Mm.
more. Filming my first skate part was pretty amazing. We'd just like film with our cameras after school and then like add music to it and like all encouraging each other. So again, there was always like a mission or a communal devotion or project that we were working towards.
Mm.
Um, and I think the community element I probably loved straight away as well. Like you have a tribe anywhere you travel in the world. When you're a skateboarder, you have friends. Like you just go to the local spot and it's your crew.
Mm.
It's like, yeah, it's like a different language that you're in.
Do you still skate today?
I cruise around. I don't try and learn tricks anymore, but I try and like keep ones that I used to have.
Mm.
I went to Forteventura 2 weeks ago, and they had a bowl in the place I was staying, so I was skating quite a bit, and that felt really, really good.
Mm.
Yeah,
Amazing.
and scary at the same time. I'm scared of hurting myself now,
Hmm.
but that wasn't there before.
What if I'd asked you as a teenager about this devotion, how do you think you understood that at the time, or your connection to intuition or the divine, or the way I heard you speak about it earlier, that's been really a through line in your life. And also you had kind of this turning point where you had to go deeper into it and really reconnect to it. And but how do you think you understood it in your teenage years?
I definitely wasn't relating to it through the context of the divine because I wasn't connected to that in my awareness anyway. I probably would have just thrown it into the like sport lump as a teenager or a social thing. I definitely didn't have that awareness of what even devotion was, for sure.
Mm.
That came quite like I'd say in the last 4 or 5 years.
Hmm.
I don't think that language was being used anywhere at that time in the ways that it's present now.
Mm.
So it was in there, but I didn't know what it was. I didn't think I was religious or, I didn't, yeah, wasn't aware at all.
How do you recognize now that it was there then, even if you didn't have that language then?
Because I can see how I was devoted to the village and the brand and the creation and what that meant. And then I think in the initiation, like having a teacher talking about devotion and that you're a very devotional person, just like connecting the dots, being able to look back in the things that I poured my life into, um, that they felt good beyond me, like something that needed to be experienced and shared.
Mm.
Mm.
Were you raised by your mom in the Catholic Church? What was your exposure to Catholicism?
So we were raised Catholic, but it wasn't strict. We
Hmm.
would go sometimes on a Sunday. I had the communion, the Holy Communion, but most of the kids in my school did. So it was just kind of a normal thing. But we didn't have like a strict Catholic upbringing in any way.
What do you think you thought about Catholicism at the time?
I thought it was quite boring at the time.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Just get it, like just boring and uncool.
Uh,
And the church experience wasn't very fun. It was
yeah.
quite boring going on a Sunday and yeah, there was no connection. I didn't feel a connection there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
How did your parents feel about you skating and later you making your brand and all of that?
So my mum is quite a worrier. So she was always scared that I was going to hurt myself. Uh, so when they'd go away on holiday, she'd hide my skateboard and there would be like a war because I'd have to go like 4 days without skateboarding. And I think my dad doesn't, he's a man of few words. So he was always supportive of it and would take me to competitions and drive me around. I think they were just like, I've always been on my own path. They've always supported it, but maybe not understood it. And that still goes today. They're like, yeah, cool. Like, this is all great. Don't really understand, but sure.
Mm,
Yeah. It's supported, but not understood.
mm.
Mm.
Can
Pushing
you
the boundaries of what they feel comfortable with as well, quite often.
mm,
Yeah. Black sheep, but actually like light sheep, gold sheep.
too bright?
Yeah.
Can you tell me some stories from life in the village when you would visit in the summers?
Oh, yes. Um, Full of life, full of love, full of like connection. There'd be the goat. It's still like that now. You look outside your window, there's the goats, and then the shepherd comes and drops you the ricotta that he's made that morning from the goats that are outside of your window. So it's like everything was close. Everything is close. Beautiful sunsets, beautiful nature. All I can say, it's like it's alive, it's pulsating. Even now that it's kind of a dying thing. And that was the biggest lesson for me when I was sick, because I was seeing the decay in the world. And then I had to go to heal in a place that is dying, like a dying village, but it's so much more alive than most of society that we are used to today. So I would say connection is the key thing that runs through the village, whether it was like neighbors popping in or like for example, my mum's neighbor, when my mum was young, there was one woman on the street that breastfed all the kids on the street, just like sharing and like connection, true human connection in and love that wasn't driven by money. And I'm not saying money is a bad thing. Money is a great thing. It was just an observation that it wasn't driving everything. There was a purity.
Mm,
Um, that I think the world has forgotten. And that's why I think I've been called to share so much about the village and invite everyone there and even invite the big brands there.
mm,
Yeah,
mm.
yeah, I hope that you get to experience it one day. I hope that everyone gets to experience it.
I was thinking that earlier. I'd love to see it.
Hmm.
Mm,
Yeah, I think there's probably many other parts of the world that still have that too, but not many.
mhm,
The old way of community and just the essence of love.
mm.
Mm.
What kinds of, I guess, products did your brand make?
We made lots of clothing products and we collaborated on we lots of trainers actually. So we collaborated with Vans and New Balance and some others. So mostly lifestyle product.
Hmm.
Mm. And then we'd make content. We'd make beautiful films or interviews and kind of did a bit of food. Did we do food? We collaborated with some restaurants as well. So basically, we sold essence. Yeah.
Mm.
And then we'd
What
put that essence onto products,
mm.
places, people.
What kinds of skills did you learn at that time?
Drawing the brand.
Hmm.
So many. Spreadsheets, manufacturing, communication, how to. just how to run a business, basically. And then community building, writing, uh, production, film production, all sorts, all sorts.
Hmm.
Yeah. Photography, everything that is required of a brand and managing an ecosystem of people.
Mhm. How did you grow personally through working on the brand?
So much. I had many mentors that helped me build the business. So I think I grew in the sense of just learning how to run something and multitask and juggle finances with marketing and all of those different elements. And loads of pain points. I really don't like execution. Just also learning like what I want to delegate, what I don't want to delegate. Um, Huge personal growth. I think running your own creative vision for me is the thing that well, for me personally, it's the thing that's pushed me to grow the most because it's constantly asking you to learn something new or evolve or work through a fear or it's like an ongoing momentum of personal growth. I think when you run your own soul project.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm sure you understand. I don't
Hmm.
think there's anything more that will drive us than that, potentially.
Mhm.
Maybe having kids. Yeah.
Yeah. What was your teacher like when you went through that initiation period?
Her name is Adriana. She was amazing. She opened me up to a whole new world. She was wild in a way that I hadn't ever seen before. And she was mystic in a way that I'd never seen before. But we had a strong connection because we were from the same land, from the same region of Italy. Um, she cracked me open in new ways. And yeah, she just helped me through it all. She was amazing. She's still one of my favorite teachers. We're actually doing something together in the village this summer. We'll be gathering some people and kind of working with the land. So she's become a friend and a co-creator. And yeah, she's a force of love. I mean, her Instagram handle is Art of Loving. So she actually kind of retrofitted loads of my life. Like realizing I was a devotee to love she really showed me that. Um, I was just collecting as I was going. And even like when we were in Italy, I cooked a meal for her and she was like, "This is love." And I was like, "No, it's just a meal." And she was like, "No, this is love." And I was like, just like everything started to click and everything I was talking about or trying to share and express into the world, I was like, oh, that's love. Oh, that's divine love. So she was a huge expander and yeah, I mean, she also opened me up to like mystic realms that I had never experienced. Um, the land started talking back to us and the animals started talking back to us, and it was quite profound. It was like tripping balls, but just with nature and but just being held by her through that. And she took me into my body in a whole new way as well. Um, Learning to listen to the sensations and the range of my nervous system and let more love in and let more power in. And yeah, it was a 6 month incredible journey. It was amazing. And I'm so grateful she arrived because I didn't know what to do before her. I didn't know what was going on.
What kinds of things did she do to crack you open?
I'd say the biggest was we went to this valley, this like water river stream, and we did a baptism there. So we were singing to the water and kind of praying to the elements. And we then realized that this rock next to us literally looked like a yoni vagina. So we were like working with that. And then just through that whole experience of the singing and the water, suddenly like all of these like butterflies started landing on me and just like the land started talking back to us. And I was just so overwhelmed because I'd never experienced that sober. Um, so I'd say that's how she first, like, the biggest crack open. And then we went and ate pasta, and I was just like, you know, trying to manage my nervous system from not being an overload. She just, holding me, just being like, "You're good. You're good. When you get home, put your legs on the wall and just let it all come in." So just opening me up more and more to the other realms and the unseen realms. And like in a way that was gradual. And then it was happening everywhere. So I'd go to London and I'd have a relationship with this tree. And it's just like she opened all of that up in a way that I didn't have access to or didn't even know was a thing before. Kind
How
of
would you
shimmer.
describe in your own words what shifted for you or what you were opened to?
The unseen. So I was living just in the scene. To some degree, I was connected to the unseen through my work and my creation and my intuition. Uh, but during that initiation, I was then connecting to land, to nature, to ancestors, to spirit, to, yeah, just the unseen realms and the shadow that comes with that and the integration that comes with that. And there were many teachers after. She was my first. Yeah, she was the doula.
Can you tell me about some of the other teachers that you worked with?
I can, yes. So all feminine teachers, in terms of opening up to the feminine ways. One specifically was more around like leaning into desire as a business strategy. And that allowed me to find the new foundations after collapsing the old. Um, and that was just a kind of a process again of listening to sensations in the body and listening to my desires and my aliveness and kind of just going through this process with her daily to map out what was coming through. And then another teacher was more around like shadow work and intimacy and eros. And that was like the final chapter of this kind of initiation of really going into desire, but in a deep, deep, intimate way. And discovering eros and what that even meant and how it can activate our vision and creativity and activate others and discovering love in this really erotic form that wasn't sexual, that was very holy. So yeah, it's been talking about it now, there's been a whole journey of love and layers of love. And I think the last and the most current is Eros. And I did in my initiation, I discovered a philosophy by a guy called Zach Stein. Do you know him? Yeah,
Do
called
yes.
Cosmo Humanism. And I watched this video and I was just like, wow, this all makes so much sense. Like it was the first time I'd seen all of my experiences or the way I live or the way I'm being asked to live expressed in a video or in a book. That was my first realization. And then I read the book, A Return to Eros by Mark Gaffney. And then I was just like, okay, got it. This is what's going on. So yeah, it started with the unseen and it's ending with Eros. Yeah. Now, I mean, it started with skateboarding, let's say, and it ended with Eros.
Hmm. How would you describe in your own words what you learned from Zach Stein and Mark Gaffney and what that ignited for you?
I don't think it was a learning, it was a mirroring. It was the first time I was reading or listening to someone talk about my experience that felt true. So it was more like a discovery than a learning because everything they were saying I was already experiencing or living. Um, which felt quite profound because I know that it's quite niche still. So it was nice to find that and just make sense of what I'm being asked to share on a deeper level. But I can, if you'd like me to talk about some of those themes, yeah, I
Yes,
can.
please.
Um, okay, so the big one is following aliveness as a life strategy, even being able to expand our nervous systems enough to even know what our desires are and that process. The link between authenticity and eros and divinity. Um, so it's funny because the erotic and the holy sit really closely together. But to be able to reach that, you need to be living in full authenticity. And just that was a big moment because I've always followed my truth and my authenticity. And then to understand that there's almost like not an end point, but there's a point there, then it sparks this erotic nature. I think the importance of um, everything in our society's been like shoved in a box of romance or sex. If you feel those feelings for someone, and being able to understand that you might have erotic feelings, but it doesn't mean that it's romantic or sexual is a big part of the work. I guess it just like the whole thing just goes back to pure divinity, the teachings, pure authentic living, soul living, wholeness, masculine, feminine, um, embodiment, um, not transcending but descending. And all of it is like ancient teachings that are have been forgotten. And I think my body has been in a process of remembering those ancient teachings. Um, and then I'm seeing or reading things that are just, yeah, mirroring that back. There's so much, but I think the authentic piece and the erotic not being just sexual is the key. It's life force. It's pure truth. If we can follow those desires in a way that's done responsibly, it allows us to create truth and magic in the world with each other or alone. And it's regenerative because it's true. It's like people living their full truth, expressing and creating that into the world can only bring more life.
Hmm. What has your process been with starting to share your ideas on Twitter and maybe in other places?
Yeah, so I had a like coming out on Twitter when I started to channel all of this because I used to talk about just skateboarding and fashion. So that was a real like, whoop. And that was quite edgy. I was like, do I set up another anonymous account or do I just go with like me? And then I remembered like authenticity is the key here. This is what I'm being asked to share. So I just went for it, and then suddenly, the more I shared those truths, my Twitter just grew massively, and I was like, okay, there's something here. Like the universe wants me to be sharing this because the more I share, the more opportunities are arriving. And then I started to find my co-creators in my tribe, and I've actually just launched a program, a cohort, to share some of these teachings and guide other soul-led creators into coming out and helping them position and express themselves into the world. So I just launched that a month ago. And I'm in the process of relaunching my brand from, well, not the brand, but I have a community and I need to engage them in this new way. So there's a bigger strategy going on in 2025 of like how this all comes together. But the brand was all about sharing soul, but our mission was living and sharing the good life. And I guess now it's about doing the exact same thing, but with this extra the good life now comes with this extra layer of like erotic, authentic living. So there was just like the soul, the light before, and now it's like the whole spectrum.
Beautiful. I'm so glad you share the things that you share.
Thank you.
Did you experience any fear about sharing your truth or blocks to showing yourself?
Yeah, massively, massively. I think in a society that has labeled a lot of erotic, sacred, feminine things as dangerous or bad or like unholy, which is so ironic, it's quite edgy to share some of that. So yeah, there's been loads of fears, definitely, that I've had to work through. Even just sharing that kind of work in a very traditional context in the village in Italy has also been really edgy. Bringing friends that are priestesses to work with the land in a very like patriarchal context. But every time I work through the fear, I'm like rewarded by the universe. So I'm just following. And I know that the world needs this remembrance for us to be able to find a way to move forward because regeneration happens in those spaces.
What
The
kinds of
fear
fears?
basically
Yep.
happens, but I just push through.
What kinds of fears have come up?
Fear of being judged, fear of being told that I'm doing something wrong, fear of getting in trouble, which is like the classic, women must be good girls, especially with the Catholic story. Fear of, mm, yeah, I guess fear of doing something wrong, saying something wrong. And there's like the witch wound in there too, I think. It's like, years we have this ingrained fear of being magic, being wise. So like it's deeply ingrained in my bones, but I've processed a lot of that in my body. And actually the initiation was a huge part of that. It was like preparing my vessel and my body and working through the ancestral healing and the ancestral fears to be able to then step into this deeper work
Mm,
and share without my nervous system freaking out or
mm.
yeah. But the body's been a huge part of it. Yeah. Yep, yep.
Can you say more about how you move through those fears, what your experience of that is like?
Mm. So I'd say in the last 3 years it was very visceral and in my body. Um, a lot of it first I'd say was like ancestral kind of healing in the nervous system and learning to hold more in my nervous system or learning how to stay in the window of tolerance, like using tools and mantra and nature and just finding all these new ways of holding more or not, or like if I did get dysregulated, being able to come back in. So I think the nervous system work was the first phase. Then I would have sensations, like sometimes when I was pushing into like a deeper part of my work or calling or work in the village, like I'd have like numb hands or like something would come up. And then again, thankfully, mentors would be like, have you noticed that every time you step into a new thing, your hand goes numb? And I was like, oh, yeah. So like somatically working through stuff. Um, and yeah, like ego death after ego death of like that societal conditioning we have. Um, a lot of it has been deconditioning the mind and listening to the body. Is the body okay with this? Because the mind isn't right now, but my body is okay with this. And just again, or connecting with nature and the unseen and having a message from them. Um, so yeah, the last 3 years have literally just been like listening to the new, to get to the new, to understand where it wants to take me. So yes, mentors, therapists, nature, ancestors, animals, all of the resources, goddess Lakshmi. Yeah, so many.
What advice would you give to another woman who had wisdom to share in the world but felt scared to do so?
I would say I'd want to spend an hour or two with her, but top line, find the courage to share it because if it's coming through you, it's coming through you for a reason. And if it, if it is coming through you, you have the tools and everything that you need to be able to share it, or it wouldn't be arriving. Yeah. Yeah, that's like you've really hit something there. That's like I really want to help women do that. So yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely. Or anyone that is being asked to express this ancient wisdom.
Hmm. Hmm.
You've really like you're giving me so much, by the way. You're like, I'm getting a lot from this.
Hmm. I'm
The
so
mirroring
glad.
that really quite something, and it's allowing me to see the vastness that goes on beyond just like sharing insights on Twitter, which is like the end that people see.
Yeah, all that comes from somewhere, and that's what I'm curious about. So I'm receiving so much, so I'm glad you're receiving as well. It's good when these things are energizing for both people.
Hmm.
Hmm. I wanted
What's
to ask about a few of your tweets. I'll read one now. Uh, you said, everyone's souls are starting to stir, even for those that don't necessarily call themselves spiritual. There's a lingering longing that they can't quite put their finger on. That longing, unbeknownst to them, is a longing to reconnect with the sacred.
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you about that. And how do you understand the times that we're living in and this chapter of humanity?
So I've always understood it through my own experience. All through my life, I've been the person that does the thing 10 years before everyone else. And whenever I've had an astrology chart reading, they've always said like you always go first. You're like a spiritual pioneer. So based on that experience of my life and seeing what I experienced then happening to the collective afterwards, I'm just trusting that. So what I experience, I share because I know it's what's kind of coming. Um, so just lived experience with that one.
Hmm.
Yeah. And this one was really like shocking that, in my life, I'd always been like, oh, there's a new trend, a new fashion trend that's going to be in 10 years, or female skateboarding is going to be a thing in 10 years. But like this one, I was like, oh, this is a really big, this is a really big change that I'm being asked to go through here. But then I saw the Zach Stein's video of this is what's coming and a new philosophy. And I was like, okay, this is where we're going. Eros
And
is back.
yeah, how would you describe that?
How would I describe Eros coming back?
Well, and yeah, and what you yourself went through that you see the collective going through now.
I think we are all going through a collective rebirth and a bit of an awakening to our spirits and what is true. And realizing that there's a lot of decay that's been normalized and a lot of death culture, I'd say. And I think people are slowly starting to sniff out or feel what is true and divine and real again. And that comes with, yeah, it's a big letting go that's being asked.
Where do you see that headed in the coming years?
I think the next decade that is going to be quite crazy and profound for humanity. I think the dark goddess is ripping through lots of people right now, and in the same way that she did through me. And I think I have a sense that she is going to be awakening in lots of people. And once you go through that process and you can see the unseen and the seen, or you can see the truth, everything will change. In the same way that I collapsed my company because it didn't feel true, and now I'm building on the foundations of love. Lots and lots and lots of people start doing that, slowly the world will become a more regenerative society. That's my hope. That's my hope. And that's what I see. She strips away anything that isn't true and almost like brings you to your knees until you see it.
Mm.
So I think that's what's going to happen. Maybe not for everyone, but yeah, I see that coming quite thick and fast within certain communities. Again, I do live in a bit of a bubble, so I know my world very well.
Mm.
But I sense it's going to trickle. It always does. The
You've
trickle
mentioned,
down,
what's that?
the trickle down effect, they would call it in marketing.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Huh. You've mentioned a couple of times this dark goddess or dark feminine. Can you say more about what that is and what your experience of it is?
For me, it was she connected me to the unseen realms, to nature, to spirit, to my body. And it was all about going down into the root instead of transcending. It was like going back to the land, back to the earth, back to the mother. Um, yeah, so I'd say it was more like spirituality, but descending instead of transcending in a very, very ancient feminine way. And she revealed to me what was alive and what was dead, which was kind of all upside down.
Can
Yeah.
you say more about that? What did you think was alive that was actually dead, and what did you think was dead that
That
was
was
actually
like, I
alive?
think when I went back to the village, which was a dying village, and all I could see was life. And then when I was in London, all I could see was death. I was like, oh, this is like everything's like upside down. So just
Hmm.
like, and farming and no, there's no value in farming. Whereas like it's such an alive, just suddenly just seeing all the places in society where life and vitality was not valued. Um, so that was how she was showing me. And then like abandoned spaces being really alive because the nature was untouched. Um, yeah, it revealed to me the value systems of our society. Uh, and just seeing like, the medical system was unable to help me, and that was the thing that was most alive, but actually nature was the thing that could heal me. It's like, yeah, bringing the light in the shadows up to the surface.
Hmm. How do you connect to her now?
Um, it's mostly just intuition now. Before it was a lot in my body and in sensations, but now I just feel quite guided intuitively.
Hmm.
I feel her anger, or I don't, she creates anger and frustration in me, but in a good way.
Hmm.
She shows me what's in alignment and what isn't. Um, yeah, I'd say it comes through in like my boundaries. If I go off piste, I feel like she'll let me know about that quite
Hmm.
quickly. Yeah, it's quite harsh, or just like sharp. But yeah, intuition is what is the best way I can explain it right
Hmm.
now.
Can you say
And through
more
other
about how
women,
she?
sorry, actually, through other women, I experience her through groups of women who are devoted to the land, to children, to life. Like there is a fierce, ferocious rage within us. And it's sparked when we're kind of together, I think. It's very protective.
Can you say more about that rage and that anger and how she connects to that, what that's like?
Yeah, so for me and my personal experience, it was kind of like when I was, when things were revealed to me that I could now see about society or the world, or how women were getting treated, or even the wars and the injustice towards life really makes me so angry. And it was as if before there's this like sugar-coated story we're all sold where like we can see it, but we don't just like, that's fine. Well, it's fine that the planet's being destroyed, or it's fine that loads of children are being murdered, you know? And then like suddenly getting under that and being like, no, this is not fine. This is fucking terrible. And just like there, the rage that comes through, that felt like that the last 3 years was a lot of that. Just like waking up to the rage, even allowing yourself to feel that rage. So you're not like seen as the crazy woman, or, you know, it's a decolonized, like it's a rage that comes when under the layers, when you've deconditioned, when you've got out of here and you can feel it in your body. It's not a mind rage. It's a deep, deep body rage.
Hmm.
And it's a rage that's needed more than ever right now. Like the rage that we can't really, I find it mad that we can just continue just being like, la, 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 la. And I'm not saying that every day you need to be angry and crazy or like burning things down, but we have hit a point collectively where I think this rage is needed to create change, to awaken, to for awareness or attention, any all the things that rage can bring.
What advice would you give women about showing up to these times?
Mm, such a big question, and it feels like so big for me to answer because we're all so different. But from my point of view, mm, learning to love each other as women is really important. And I think I'm very lucky to have sisterhood, deep sisterhood in my life where I've got like ride or dies friendship sisters that truly back me and support me and love me. And I think I just want every woman to experience that because it gives you strength and courage to create change, whether it's in your own life or in your community or even wider than that. And we're not supposed to be alone. Women are not supposed to be isolated or just with their partners or kind of, yeah, I think we live in a society that, I don't know, like sisterhood is quite, true sisterhood still feels quite rare. And I know it's like, that's not really advice, but it's like, I would love for women to love each other, truly love each other, instead of competing or competing for the man or, yeah, it's painful to see that. Because, yeah, when women love each other and are backing each other, it's pretty powerful. And mums need the love. I feel like motherhood has been what's the word? It's not been valued in the way that it should be, and mums aren't supported in the way they should be. And honestly, I feel like that's the most important piece of the puzzle. If mums can feel loved and protected and honored, and then the children that they bring into the world can feel that, it's so important. So again, but I think that goes to like women loving women and men loving women. But that's a whole different story. We won't. Also, women loving themselves. We again we live in a society where like you have to be skinny, you have to be this. When you're 30, you're already old. All these stories we are fed by the media and by society. Women hate themselves because of that. Of course they do. So again, women loving themselves, women loving other women, and mothers being supported like the goddesses that they are would be really lovely. You've got me like raging now.
That's great.
The sword is out.
Uh-huh. What advice would you give men for living in these times?
Mm. I'm not a man, so I can't say, but I know some really great men. Um, oh, men. To also love women or learn how to love women correctly and love themselves. So not too differently, to be honest. Um, I think that there's this whole narrative of women being bad and men being bad, and it's not helping us or serving. So in my experiences, all I can share is my experience. When I feel men in devotion to the feminine, it is something so beautiful and it allows women to thrive. And I think men thrive in that as well because they are in service and revered. And it feels to me like the sacred order of how things should be. Um, but it requires all of us to do a lot of internal healing and it requires work for us to get to these places. But yeah, I'm a big fan of devotional men. I'll throw that straight out there. Um, in a world that, yeah, because I think it feels like a lot of men feel like they don't feel needed or they don't know their place from what I can see in the world, and that couldn't be more untrue.
Hmm. You spoke earlier about the difference between anger in the mind and anger in the body, and you've spoken about how important the body has been in your process. And there's another tweet I want to ask you about. There's creation that comes from the mind and creation that comes from the body. The latter is what the world is asking from us right now. This is where the regeneration will stem from. This is where the change will come from. So, my question is, in your experience, how do you tell the difference between something that comes from the mind, a creation that comes from the mind, and something that comes from the body, a creation that
Mm.
comes from the body?
Yeah, great question. I think that ties into this journey I've been on the last 3 years of going into the body and in that initiation. Okay, so one example I can give. So when my body asked me to stop everything and I couldn't type, I was just in pain, I had pain everywhere. And my teacher, Adriana, who came to the village, she was like, I want you to start going into dance, go into the pain, and just listen and write. And all of this decolonial writing came out that I didn't even know where it was coming from. It's not even things I knew. Like, and it was created my path. It just kept revealing more, revealed a next step, or revealed something that I needed to remember, or someone that I needed to speak to. Or the same when I would feel a sensation in my body and I could understand that that was fear. It was just like mapping everything from the body. Whereas the mind is like something you already know, or it's just in there. Whereas the body always feels like a new piece of information that's being revealed from somewhere deep, somewhere old. Um, so it has a different texture. Um, and again, a lot of it coming out of the body was the ragey stuff. like the change and the regeneration. Whereas the mind is more like future insight. If I had to look at it, one feels old and one feels galactic or cosmic. But it's very hard to discern. It's super subtle. But most of the decolonial wisdom has come from my body, not the mind, because my mind hasn't seen or known that anywhere. And the same with like reading about Eros or watching the video. That all came from my mind, my body first, and then my mind was able to find it in the world.
The old is from the mind and the future, the cosmic is in the body, or the other way around?
By the way,
Other way
yeah,
around. Hmm.
body feels ancient, which
Hmm.
it is, I guess, right? It's our DNA, it's our bones, it's old, it's nature, it's and whereas the mind is more around what we're taking in our current reality.
When you have something come through your body, what is your experience of your mind during that?
Usually fear,
Hmm.
because it doesn't understand. It's something new.
Hmm.
Mm. Or like light bulb or fear,
Hmm.
usually. But then the mind will go like, okay, write this down or
Hmm.
tweet this or so they kind of work hand in hand eventually. Yeah.
The mind is not uninvolved. It's just,
Yeah, it's very involved. Just
mhm,
it's not remembering the ancient parts.
mhm.
Or maybe it is. I don't know enough about science to understand how it all connects, but from a feeling, it's like the body remembers the old and then the mind kind of can process that into something that makes sense.
In your experience, when something comes through the mind, what is your body's experience?
Huh. Okay, so something comes through my mind. I will then go into my womb to see, to kind of give me a read on it. I'm
Mm,
like, does this feel true in my body? Uh, so the body's kind of like always the final say or the
mm,
final signifier.
mm.
Yeah. But the mind's great. I'm not dissing the mind. The mind is a genius in its own way, but the body's like the boss.
Mhm. I think part of the reason I'm interested in checking about your experience is that often I start to notice these things through my mind. I'll have a thought about something, and then I notice that it's very resonant for my body and it's very alive. But like, uh, like chronologically, I start to notice it through I'm thinking about something, and that has pulled me forward. And I liked hearing you talk about your experience and what that's like for you and how those connect. And um,
Hmm.
it sounds like I think your tweet made me think that they're a bit more separate or distinct than the way that you're talking about it now, where it's like the body is the authority and then the kind of final say and the arbiter, and uh, that's what you're trusting in the end. But it's not that the mind is like one or the other or something like that.
Yeah, no, it's not so like separate, but I think all of the new old information that came through came from my body. I
Mm,
think the tweet was saying like, and that's how we can build the future from that because we can trust it's got a decolonized or deconditioned truth to it.
mm. What does that? What do those words mean to you? Decolonized or deconditioned?
Yeah, this is a big one to kind of try and explain. Deconditioned is like undoing all the narratives we've been told that are true based on your own truth. That's been my experience. So someone saying, I don't know, someone saying you can, the medical system will heal you and it's the best system. The current modern medical system, again, there's nothing wrong with it. It serves an amazing purpose. But then my experience was, well, actually, they weren't able to help me. And what helped me was shamanism or mysticism and many other things. And then I was like, okay, so I've now got a deconditioned truth that's my lived experience. And there was loads of that. And decolonized, I think, is going back to being able to, for me, it was being able to see life, force, vitality, love in the indigenous old ways that have been lost. through colonization, essentially, which is worldwide. And so it's created a societal way of life that is normal for us, but there's loads of layers that are missing in that.
Hmm.
Yeah. And I know it's like there's so much around decolonization. And I think I talk about it from a soul decolonization point of view. I'm not a historian. I don't know much about place, history, kind of that level of colonization. I think it's like, again, just going back to the soul truth. Yeah. And remembering the sacred is a part of soul decolonization as well. So tapping into it and being like, life, life, life. Didn't know this was life. Didn't know this was life. It's just like a remembering.
He said, humans creating safety within their nervous systems is one of the most impactful requirements of this revolution. Not holding back. January 2024, Maria Falbo, just all guns blazing. Um,
The
how did
sharpness.
I love it?
uh,
How did you create safety in your own nervous system?
3 years again of just exploration. So I would say it started with meditation. Then I went into mantra, so singing, dancing. Mantra allowed me to go into my body and into that love power source, but without fear. Um, Nature, huge. There was moments where I couldn't be in London. I had to just be surrounded by hills, and my nervous system could like regulate with the land. Um, yeah, I'd say they're the main things my main resources that I used over the 3 years, and just like gradually like trying and pushing and letting more in, spending more time in London again. It was as if my whole system was rewired and I had to like learn how to exist in it again in a new way. Because I'd lived in London my whole life. I guess I wasn't fully in my body. I don't know. Something just huge shift, huge awakening.
Sort of along the same lines, this is a bit of a longer tweet, a recent one I'd like to read and ask you about. A tried and tested strategy to uplevel your life in 3 months. Being
Mm.
super intentional with your energy and where you direct it. Being firmly rooted into your surroundings and the nature around you. Turning judgment into curiosity. Removing all distractions that take you away from your vision. Feeling your way through blocks and discomfort when they arise instead of avoiding them. Moving your body daily. Keeping hold of your power by expressing your truth in relational dynamics. Leaning into shame. Simplifying as much as possible. Choosing nourishment in your relationships. Um, let's see. What was your experience of those things? And is there anything you'd like to say about that or add about it as you hear me read it back to you?
Yeah. So that was one of my most popular tweets that popped off. There's a
Rightly
lot in
so.
there's a lot in there. Um, a lot of that feels like energy management when I like listen back to it, like really being rooted in self, truth, place, and not swaying. Um, and I actually was in that process when I was launching the program because I needed to just be like focused. Um, so yeah, a lot of that feels like eros and energy management. So you can stay in your power and your presence, focused and not being swayed. And then a part of it was also, I think, about going into shame or going into discomfort. So being able to transmute uncomfortable feelings into power instead of avoiding them, I think. So yeah, that was when I hear back, it's like a lot of energy management. I can't remember the whole list now, but even just feeling into it, I remember that time I was just like solid in my own energy, and anything that was coming in was like transmute, remove. If there's any you want to pick specifically within that, let me know. Because I've
One
already
that's
picked.
standing out for me is telling your truth in relational dynamics. What's
Mm.
that like for you?
So this is a big part of keeping Eros alive in relationships, because the minute we don't speak our truth, we diminish our power or we give it away. And then that aliveness or the connection can fizzle because I've erotic relationships require both people to always be in their holy, authentic, divine truth. And then it creates this aliveness from, again, from experience and from what I've read. Um, so that felt like a really important one, to be able to stay centered in that, in your own power, in your own energy. Because the minute otherwise we're people pleasing. And then the relationship isn't actually alive. It's pretending to be something. But I know that like most of the world doesn't work like that, and it's not easy to be in relationships that always speak truth. And I don't know. Yeah, I'm still exploring that one. I'm still exploring and navigating what it looks like to be like that in all relationships. But I think it's powerful.
What happens for you when you do tell your truth?
Everything great happens. Yeah. It's more opportunities arrive, more aliveness happens, more connection. Yeah.
Hmm.
Good. It just, I guess, aliveness and alignment. And sometimes it's uncomfortable. But then it's depends on the relationship, but is the other person comfortable enough to hear the truth as
Hmm.
well?
How do you understand what that people pleasing is?
I know because now my energy dissipates. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's like self-betrayal. You can feel it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, do you know what that feels like?
Oh,
I'm curious.
definitely.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 I think that one stands out to me because I've had a lot of opportunities to practice it recently, and I'm also, I guess, on some level, trying to generalize that and not just in certain safe containers, but like, can I speak my truth always and have the courage to speak it always and not fall into those people-pleasing behaviors or what feels easier or more comfortable and have the courage to say the difficult thing. And I think that's a big theme for me at this time in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. Me too.
Hmm.
I'm playing with it too. It's a
Hmm.
hard one, right?
Hmm. Definitely.
It's again, it's like we've been told that it's rude or mean, or there's so much to work through there. Or
Hmm.
how do you speak your truth in a way that is always, I don't know if it can always be met, received well. I don't
Hmm.
know. Yeah, it's an interesting one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And like, what would happen if we all were doing that every
Hmm.
day, everywhere?
Let's go. We need it. Calling that in. This inspires me to have that be the standard. So, yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah, great.
Hmm. Tell me more about this program you've launched and who it's for and what it will involve.
Yeah, so I was feeling into how I can be best in service, and it landed with helping and guiding New Earth pioneers, others that have been through this similar rebirth into the unseen with their positioning. So helping them position themselves and helping them kind of express themselves into the internet. So it's a mix, I'd say, of like teachings of Eros and cosmoerotic humanism, but then with a little kind of marketing edge. I don't like to use the word marketing because it's old world, but I call it societying now. So we used to be marketing and now we're societying. So we're filling the society gaps and onboarding pioneers and guiding them into that so that they can be in service and expressing it into the world with ancient truths. Um, so in many ways, I'm like the I'd say I'm just a guide. That's the best way to a guide and an amplifier for those that are ready to, yeah, birth the new ways.
Mm.
And it excites me, like when I see someone step into their truth and their expression and their calling in the same way that I have, or have, who have been following their intuition their whole lives. It's like an honor and a pleasure to just like take hold of that and help them
Mm.
through it.
What will the program actually involve for someone who participates?
So it's 3 months currently. It will evolve and emerge as we go because I think naturally that will just happen. But a lot of it is kind of teachings and learning ways that we can connect with the unseen, how to channel, how to use your body creatively, um, how to deal with taboo and societal taboo, and how to work through fears. And it's in a group context, so we're in a container together. So there's structure around the teachings. And then we also allow the goddess to work her way through the group. Already she's bringing in what she wants to bring in. And the second half is kind of helping craft their message and more practical execution and tangible form of what they're being asked to bring into the world. So in a sense, the container is a mix of the seen and the unseen, and the masculine and the feminine in what we're allowing it to hold and carry. So it's a bit of a mystical. I mean, instead of going to a marketing agency, you enter a mystical portal and, and come out in a new way.
Mm. How do you hope to grow personally through running this program?
I'm already growing in the sense of learning how to hold groups. I've worked one-to-one with many, but holding a group dynamic is new, and I'm actually really enjoying it. I was quite scared of that at the beginning. And it's teaching me how to hold both structure and intuition at the same time. Um, like, how do we actually navigate holding both? Like, creating containers and structures, but allowing enough room for it to move and sway and emerge at the same time. So that's my biggest work, I think, understanding how that works,
Mm.
um, and creating wholeness in a container in that way.
Mm.
And then I think I'm holding space for both men and women in the groups, and that's a new territory of like, how do we come together in this space as well? How do we exist in these kinds of spaces together?
Mm.
And I think it's quite common to see like separate groups, but I'm enjoying the idea of bringing it together.
Mm.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of territory. Is there anything that you'd like to dive more deeply into or talk about or ask about?
No, I feel like we've covered lots. I feel very expanded and inspired to go away and now expand into many of those parts myself.
Hmm.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I have like bigger, wider plans with Italy and the village and the societying and the brand, but I'm going to keep that a bit mysterious for everyone because it will be coming next year. Um, but I'm very excited about gathering those in service to the feminine, and the divine feminine, men and women, and just creating magic with them. So I think I just wanted to express that desire into the world.
Mm.
And anyone that is needing guidance in what can be quite a scary rebirth portal, just knowing that they're not alone and that there's many of us out here ready to hold others through this portal of
Mm.
change.
Beautiful. Well, I so appreciate you for everything that you've been through and that you've learned and felt and grown in and the challenges you faced and that you share that with the world. I think it's very brave to share your wisdom in the way that you do and to act on it and to follow your intuition. And uh, I'm so grateful to have had the chance to speak to you at some length and learn more about you because, it's there's been a steady stream of these pieces of wisdom that you've found that you've shared. And it's really lovely to see who you are and where that's coming from and what your story is and how it all fits together. So I'm so grateful for your time and your wisdom and your kindness and sharing yourself in this way.
Hmm. And I'm so grateful to be in the space. You've asked such beautiful questions. I feel very seen and very held. And yeah, thank you. Honestly, you've asked the most beautiful questions in a way that I'm really reflecting myself. So thank you. And I guess my biggest thank you is allowing space for this feminine wisdom to be shared into the world feels really special, and especially when it's held by men.
Mm,
It's really great. So thank you for being brave in that way too, and for your support.
my absolute pleasure. My absolute pleasure.
Amazing. And I have loads of questions for you, but we will do that separately.
Happily.
Is there anything you would like to finish this with?
Well, I'm reminded of something that I care quite deeply about, which is in general, there are three parts of my life's work, and I call them love, curiosity, and empowerment. And
Mm,
there's this phrase that I wrote some time ago of love for my brothers and power for my sisters. And that means many things to me, but one of them is that by and large, the love work that I do is for men at this time, and by and large, the empowerment work is for women at this time. And they're not exclusive. It's not like only for love is not only for men, and empowerment is not only for women. It's not discriminatory in that way, but it's like that's what's needed at this time culturally, I think. I think men need to learn to love and women need to be uh,
amazing.
made peace with power. Like it's okay to have power and to have power in the world and take action. And I want to help women to do that. And in particular, there's this phrase that has come to me of like wisdom queens, and that's come from seeing so many of you and your sisters on Twitter sharing their wisdom and this sort of like uprising of women who are so embodied and connected to their wisdom and connected to divinity, or really understand their psyche and they've been through a lot and are sharing what they've learned from their journey with others on social media and on the internet. And I think that's such a gift, and I love the different reflections that come through. And I think something that I'm interested in going forward is empowering wisdom queens in particular, like yourself, where it's like how can um, that wisdom be recognized and shared and yeah, honored for what it is and treasured and held as sacred. And I think I'm good at recognizing that when I see it and that quality of feminine wisdom. And that's why I've wanted to speak to you and others. And I think that that's why I asked you earlier about fear, because I think often I know a lot of wise women who are afraid to share their wisdom and it's scary and maybe they don't share as much online as they might, and or even maybe they're not afraid, but it just seems sort of like pointless or not the most important thing, and maybe they'll write a lot, but they keep it in private. And
Mm.
this is something my friend Tyler has also written about, that there's like these lots of women who have tons of writing, but it's like in a private Google Doc that they don't share somewhere. And to me, that's frankly, to speak my truth, that's a tragedy to me, where it's like, oh, there's this wisdom that's not being distributed, and that's someone's choice what to do with their own powers and their own gifts, and maybe that's how it's meant to come through that person. But to the extent that it feels safe and right and in alignment with their wisdom, I'd really like to help wisdom queens to access the path towards sharing that so that it can be of benefit. And I think that's part of what makes me really appreciate and admire women like yourselves who, certainly had that fear come up. It's not that it's not present, but found the courage to work through it and found the skills and resource themselves and had the support and the mentors and the blessing of whatever wisdom is coming through them to share it. And I don't think that's something that's a given, actually, and from my experience. And I'd like to see what I can do to help women like yourself to share that wisdom and to let it be distributed. And part of that
Wow.
is through having these conversations.
Yeah. Wow. My womb is a big yes to this. So important. And again, I'm just going to say, like, to be supported by men in that way, to be given that space and to feel their desire to share this wisdom is so powerful and so healing and amazing. It's so needed. So yeah, thank you. And please do that.
Yes, ma'am.
Like yeah, it's so needed.
Mm, mm.
Amazing. And I
Well,
love the men needing love and women needing power. That feels really, really good and really true. Yeah.
yeah. I think men are on the flip side. It's like this is what I had to go through. Is yeah, I couldn't cry for a decade. I didn't know how to cry, and I wanted to. My subjective experience was like I want to. I know that it's good, but I just couldn't, and cried maybe like twice, three times, four times in a decade, and it felt like out of my power. And I really had to learn about the heart and what I was feeling and how to express what I was feeling and how to share that. And then only then did this love stuff of love and kindness and love for all beings start to be possible. I had to make peace with my own heart first and what was actually in there and what was tangled and let it move through. And of course, I'm still learning. I have so much to learn, but it's not like I finished that. But I think that's something I'd really like to help my brothers with is, hey, it's okay. You have this heart and it has feelings, and it's okay to know what you're feeling, and it's okay to say what you're feeling, and to share that with the world. And that's the path towards being kind to yourself. That's the path towards being kind to others. And being kind. I have such this is a rage that I feel. I have so much anger towards a cultural conception of masculinity where it's effeminate to have emotions or to express emotions. I think that's torturous to men and so unkind and so cruel, because of course we have emotions. And um, it's not, to me, I see a man as brave and strong when he's willing to feel what he's feeling, or he's
100.
willing to say what he's feeling. And that's in no way like weak or
No,
something like that. It's
it's courage
a
and
great
strength.
strength and courage. So I want to help create a world where that's recognized. It's like, and not that there would be anything wrong with being more effeminate or something like that, but just that you're not lesser for being connected to your emotions. That's a source of strength, actually.
That's
So
power. That's men's power, in my
yeah,
view. Like,
absolutely.
yeah, amazing. I can't wait to hear more about everything you do.
Yeah, I went
Amazing.
off there.
Yeah,
So
no, it's good. It's
great, you
great.
got me ranting, Maria.
Get that love rage going.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much for your time, and I know we'll speak more, and I'm really looking forward to that.
Yeah, me too.
Mm,
Amazing. Thanks again, and
mhm,
have a beautiful day
mm.
wherever you are.
Great.